I'm Kate Ackerman. Thank you all so much for being here. We're really excited to have this conference today. Welcome to the first female athlete conference. This conference really started just as a little pipe dream about a year ago when Whitney Post and I were fantasizing about how cool it would be to get experts about female athletes all in one place. We're both former U.S. rowing lightweights, and we often commented on how much we know now more than what we knew when we were athletes, and we wish we could tell younger people the stuff that we've learned over the last 15, 20 years. And really, there are a lot of good national, really great good national, international conferences on sports medicine and sports, but they usually only allot a session or two really devoted to the female athlete. And there are really a lot of things that we should know about in terms of sex-specific differences in training, health issues, injury prevention. So historically, men were the only athletes and they were the only research subjects. And times have changed, so we need to change with them. With Dawn Hines in the back and her tireless work ethic, along with the generosity of Timberline Knowles and Babson College, we're able to really get some momentum and we were able to pull this off. We've had great research coordinators, marketing gurus, and volunteers who shared in our vision, and then this idea really became a reality. The collection of speakers you're going to hear from today are absolutely astounding. I wish I had the time to really share everybody's CV with you, but that would have added about 300 pages to your binders. But when you hear them speak, you will be so impressed. We have professors with hundreds of publications, we have athletes with Olympic medals, coaches with decades of experience, the list absolutely goes on. So we'll get on with things, but first a little housekeeping that I have to tell you. We did get some financial donations to help us pull off this conference. So those of you who are getting CMEs and CEUs, I am disclosing that we had Timberline Knowles, who have generously given us money for food, so you can all enjoy breakfast and lunch. And we had other sponsors that are listed in your brochure who have donated auction items and some financial assistance to help us pay for all of this. Dunkin' Donuts, importantly, is open all day starting at 10 o'clock. It's right across the way, those of you who like to be caffeinated like I do. And they open especially just for the conference. They're not usually open on Saturday. The bathroom, after you drink your Dunkin', is around the corner here out of the hall. The exits, you know where the exits are. Basically, they're exit signs in case we have a fire. Let's not have that happen. Lunch is going to be in Trim Hall, so everybody here with the volunteer shirts will escort us over to Trim, and we'll have a nice big choice of food in the cafeteria. And then after lunch, we're all going to be going down to Olin, which is a different location, so hopefully the rain lets up. We did bring some stray umbrellas, and it's going to be a bad hair day. We'll just deal with it. So basically, we stay here, then we go to lunch, and then we go over to Olin. There is a silent auction all day that's going to benefit female athlete research, so feel free to bid on any of those items that are in the hall from all of our donors. And the winners will be announced tomorrow. So today's the day to bid, and then tomorrow we'll hand those out. And then finally, if you are a nurse and you wanted to get credits for being here, you need to sign in at the front when you register, and you should get an evaluation packet. So you need to sign in every day, and you need to fill out the evaluation packet and turn it in at the end of the day. I don't make the rules, but that's how you get your credits. Everybody else who's here for CMEs, CEUs, all that stuff, that's all going to be mailed to you via email later. But specifically for the nurses, that's what they need to do to get their credits. So thank you again all for being here, and let's get on with our show. So, like I said, I'm Kate Ackerman, welcome. I definitely want to make a huge thanks to the people who've really been involved. Dawn Hines and Whitney Post, the planning co-chairs, they've been amazing through this whole process. And all of these people listed is probably not an exhaustive list, but these are the people that are part of what I call the dream team. And they've really been helpful, from Babson to our research coordinators to our marketing team. All of these names really have pulled their weight like you cannot believe. So let's talk about the history of women in sports. So we go back to ancient Greece. In 776 BC, the Greece Olympics started, and they were to honor Zeus. The games were offered up to the gods to appease them and to combat a plague. But women were barred from participating, and especially barred from even watching. In 300 BC, the Heron Games for women were held, and that was every 4 years, and they also had some pan-Hellenic festivals. And these were mostly running events for women. Spartan girls then later were even trained in some athletic events as boys. So the Spartans were a little ahead of their time, and they said strong women could produce strong future warriors, so they actually let their women get fit. And Plato was even better. He said that women should have an active role in society, and this is a picture of the Parthenon where they have statues of women standing alone, showing that they could have an independent role. But then there was the Roman Empire, and only rarely were some elite women allowed to play some sports. It was just the very elite, and there were few and far between. And every once in a while, there was an occasional female gladiator. Then we had the Dark Ages. Not much happened. There were plagues, and they didn't really have time to be jocks. And then we got to colonization. And so in 1567, Mary Queen of Scots was said to be the first woman to play golf in Scotland. And there are actually quite a few pictures and paintings of her playing golf. Under English common law, though, really, women were pretty non-existent. There were no rights. They couldn't own land. They weren't part of our initial constitution. And then we had this Puritan ethic where women were considered the weaker sex, and they were given awesome names like weaker, pious, obedience. So again, not a lot going on during the Puritan days. But things started to move in the 1800s. So in 1811, that was the first women's golf tournament. By 1875, Wellesley, shout out for some of the Wellesley folks here, it opened, and it required physical education as part of its curriculum, which was fantastic. Not only did they have a female university, but they also said that they should have sports and have phys ed. In 1884, the women's singles competition began at Wimbledon, and Maud Watson was the first champion. And there she is, and she actually caught a lot of flack because they said her skirt was too short and you could see her ankles. She was pretty risque. In 1896, the first women's intercollegiate basketball champion occurred. That was between Stanford and Cal Berkeley. Here's some of the players. And then in 1896, the Olympics finally came back. So this is the beginning of the modern Olympics. But again, women were barred because they were thought to be run by nerves and not muscles, and they couldn't handle it. So in 1900, women were competing in the Paris Olympics in golf. So 4 years later, they convinced some people on the Olympic Committee that maybe some women could participate. The US still wasn't on board. They still thought it was a bad idea. But some of the European countries sent some female athletes for golf, tennis, and croquet. In 1902, figure skater Madge Sires of Britain entered the men's world championships because there wasn't an opportunity for her to skate against any women. So she entered the men's, and she came in second. So that got some people riled up because she was beating men. In 1912, Pierre de Coubertin said an Olympian with females would be impractical, uninteresting, unaesthetic, and improper. He was kind of a jerk. In 1914, the U.S. Olympic Committee opposed women's athletic competition. The only exception was field exercises because women could wear long skirts, so then it would be all right. In 1917, Lucy Diggs Slow became the first African-American woman to win a national title. So there she is on the right, and that was in American tennis. In 1922, the women were getting restless and said, we want to do sports. If you're not going to let us play in the Olympics, then we're going to do something else. So they had the first World Games for women. In 1924, figure skating was the only sport open to women at the first Winter Olympic Games. And Sonia Henne was very impressive. She was a 3-time Olympic figure skating champion. She went in 1928, 32, and 36 in the ladies singles. She was a 10-time world champion and a 6-time European champion. And she later went on to be a movie star and did a lot of skating movies, and there you see her on the right. In 1931, Vern Mitchell became the first woman in professional baseball. And she actually struck out Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig in an exhibition game. But people didn't like that, so the baseball commissioner then banned women from the sport. In 1932, we couldn't do a talk about female athletics without bringing up Babe Didrikson. So she participated in 8 of the 10 events at the AAU Championships, and that year that was also the Olympic trials, so they used that event for the trials, and she won 6 of them. So she basically got her whole team to qualify for the Olympics because of all the events that she did. She was only allowed to participate in 3 of the events that she qualified for because they said she was a woman and she couldn't handle doing more than 3 events. But so she did 3, and she was first in the 80-meter hurdles, first in the javelin, and she tied for first in the high jump. She was a stud. But again, catching flack, it would be much better if she and her ilk stayed at home, got themselves prettied up, and waited for the phone to ring. That was the response to her amazing athletic endeavors. In 1948, we had Alice Coachman, who was the first black woman to win an Olympic gold medal in the high jump. And then in 1966, now we're getting to an age where some people in the room are going to start remembering this stuff, Roberta Gibb became the first woman to run and finish the Boston Marathon in 3:21, no less. And this was an unofficial time since women weren't officially entered until 1972. So she just ran it and kept her mouth shut and ran fast and did great. In 67, Catherine Schweitzer, who still shows up at the Boston Marathon Expo and gives a lot of talks, is a pretty impressive woman, she entered the marathon, and she entered as KV Schweitzer, so they wouldn't give her a hard time about being male or female. And you can see here that the race director at the time was trying to push her out of the way, and he said, "Get off my race course." The big burly guy there with the shorts is actually her boyfriend, who was pushing him back and let her keep going. So that was, after that, they finally were allowed in 71, women finally got the official nod, or sorry, that's the wrong year, but a couple years after that, they finally were allowed to do it in 72. In 71, women finally got the official nod to play 5-player, full-court basketball. So then we all know about Title IX, 72, big year. And basically, if you don't know this, you should memorize this. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This was huge. It wasn't even just about sports. This was about equal financing, equal attention for law school, for medical school, for all sorts of different endeavors. There was a 600% increase in girls' participation in sports from just 72 to 78. We were ready to go, we just needed the help and the permission. Of course, then there's the 73 Battle of the Sexes. Billie Jean King basically was getting egged on by Bobby Riggs, and he was saying, I could beat any woman, it's no contest. And unfortunately, another woman took the bait and she lost to him. So that really frustrated Billie Jean King because this guy was just flapping his mouth. She knew she was pretty good at tennis. She didn't want to embarrass women. She wanted to just clobber him if she had to do this. So because that other woman lost, she said, all right, fine, I'll play. And she clobbered him. So this was now, Sports Illustrated was awesome at this point, and they said, what in the world kind of occasion was this, in which the woman not only defeated the man, but swamped him, outplayed, outclassed, outpsyched, outnerded, and beat the living bejesus out of him as well. She's a pretty cool chick. So in '84, we had the first women's Olympic marathon, and now we're talking about a local hero, Joan Benoit. She won in 2:24, more than a minute ahead of her rivals. And this was, women, they kept saying, oh, they can't do marathons, their bodies can't handle it. She did this despite arthroscopic surgery on her knee 17 days before the trials earlier that year. So looking at 2012, we just had an Olympics last year. This was kind of an interesting statistic I got upon. So basically, the U.S. sent more women than men to the Olympics this year, slightly, 268 versus 261. And if we counted the U.S. women as their own country, they actually would have been 5th in the medals earnings. So pretty impressive that just the females from our country did that well with the medal stand. Clearly, we've come a long way. Women can do any sport we can think of at this point. They're doing powerlifting. They're competing in the Olympics pregnant. All sorts of crazy stuff is happening. 2013, there are over 3 million female high school and collegiate athletes, and now teenage girls make up the fastest growing segment of children and adolescents participating in organized sports. So the benefits, we know, they did a study looking at students attending NCAA Division I schools, and the female athletes have the highest graduation rate. In general, female athletes have greater bone density than non-athletes because they're doing a lot of good weight-bearing exercise. They have higher self-esteem, decreased depression rates, decreased drug use, more positive body image, less sexually risk-taking behavior, higher graduation rates. It all seems pretty good. But we have a way to go. There are things that we have to figure out to help keep the positive outweighing the negative. There really are some differences between male and female athletes. So women have a higher risk of ACL tears, and Dr. Murray and Dr. Meyer will tell us more about that later. There's higher rate of kneecap maltracking and pain. Dr. Geminiani will talk about patellofemoral syndrome. Symptoms and recovery from concussion can be different. You'll hear from Dr. Stein about that. Female Athlete Triad, we have a whole panel to discuss that tomorrow about the combination of energy availability, menstrual irregularity, and bone health. And then it's just a fact that it's more difficult for us to build muscle. We have to work a little bit harder at it because we have less testosterone in our system, and testosterone is one of the reasons that we can build muscle, or why men can build it so quickly. In general, we typically are more flexible, so we have this hyperlaxity, which causes some things to get malaligned and to slip and dislocate. And the fact is, some of us have babies, so we may need to modify exercise during and after pregnancy, and we're learning more and more about how to do that. We also get motivated differently. If you've ever had a male or a female coach, or you've been on a team, we respond differently to positive and negative feedback. And so we're going to hear from a coaching panel to talk about some good strategies in communication and motivation. So I really think we owe a huge debt of gratitude for the women and the people who have supported the women before us. We really have to thank them who broke down the barriers. Basically, they got our feet in the door. Someone like Billie Jean King, she got equal prize money for tennis because she was sick of going and playing at Wimbledon and having the men earn more. They proved that anatomy and physiology don't stand in the way of great sports participation and achievement. And the adult women affected by Title IX, who've been followed for 20 to 25 years, really have shown that they have a lower body mass index, they have lower rates of obesity, they report being more physically active. So we see that these are all positive changes. If it's not just for ourselves and our motivation, in general for overall health and society's health, it's great to have this participation. So I want to thank you again all for being here. Really use this time. I think you'll get excited not only by the speakers, but all of the other people in the room. We had a gathering last night for a lot of the speakers and some of our sponsors, and people were just so excited to meet like-minded people who are excited about these topics. So feel free to network. Let's learn from each other, support each other in our various endeavors, teach one another, and remember that this is a team effort. So thank you very much.